You know that feeling, right? Grinding away at work, you're constantly exhausted, maybe your relationships are feeling the strain, all while you're obsessively checking your investment portfolio? We've all been sold this idea that building wealth means decades of brutal suffering. But what if that's a complete lie? Today we're going to talk about how the truly wealthy build their fortunes without burning themselves out.
Okay, so here's our game plan. First, we're going to tear down the whole myth of the grind. Then we'll get into the right mindset, which is crucial, before we build a powerful automation system. From there, it's all about creating a solid safety net, putting your money to work for you, and finally, tying this whole thing together into a path that won't just make you wealthy, but will actually keep you sane. All right, let's dive right in by tackling the biggest lie out there about getting rich. This idea that you have to grind yourself into dust just to succeed. I mean, does this sound familiar? You're pulling crazy hours, you're mentally drained, and you feel like if you stop for even a second, the whole thing is just going to collapse. Look, that is not a path to wealth. That's a one-way ticket to burnout. And this right here really gets to the heart of it. The myth tells us we have to suffer, that we have to run on this hamster wheel forever to succeed. But the reality? The people who are truly wealthy, they're not just working harder, they're working smarter. They build systems that generate wealth for them, a lot of times while they're off doing something else entirely.
So, if building systems is the answer, where do we even begin? Well, before you can build anything that lasts, you've got to have the right foundation. And that foundation, it's not about the numbers in your bank account. It's all about the mindset you bring to your money in the first place.
This is the absolute core mental shift you have to make. A scarcity mindset is always asking, how can I cut back? How can I restrict myself? And that just leads to feeling deprived and eventually burning out. But an abundance mindset asks a totally different question. How can I grow? How can I build assets that earn more? It completely changes the game from one of fear and deprivation to one of opportunity and empowerment. So with that abundance mindset locked in, how do we actually put it into action without relying on willpower, which, let's be honest, we all know runs out? The answer is so simple, but it is so powerful. Automation. The whole process is really just a simple three-step system. First, you've got to know exactly what you're working toward. Then, you create a spending plan. And look, this isn't to restrict you, it's to tell your money where to go. And finally, the magic step. You automate it, so your wealth is building itself without you even having to think about it. Let's make this real with an example. So, say you earn $75,000 a year. After taxes, that's about $2,300 every 2 weeks. The moment that paycheck hits your account, your system automatically sends $400 to savings, $300 to retirement, and $200 to other investments. You're left with a perfectly comfortable $1,400 to live your life, all while you're effortlessly building wealth in the background. And here's the real payoff. This is not about painful sacrifice. Just by automating the process, after only 5 years, that person could have a portfolio worth around $75,000. I mean, think about that. They built significant wealth not through stress and struggle, but by designing a system that removed the struggle completely. Okay, so before we get into all the exciting stuff like investing, we have to build the foundation. And I know it sounds boring, but an emergency fund is probably the single most important thing you can do to protect your financial future.
You see, this fund is so much more than just money for a flat tire. It's a psychological safety net. It's a buffer. When life inevitably throws you a curveball and you don't have this cash cushion, you're forced to make panic decisions, like selling your investments at the worst possible time or racking up high-interest debt.
And the data on this is crystal clear. Research shows that just having a couple $1,000s in emergency savings is linked to a 21% higher financial well-being score. That's the single biggest boost you can give yourself. It's the peace of mind that lets you actually sleep at night.
So here's the plan. It's simple. Step 1, do whatever it takes to save your first $1,000. That'll cover most small emergencies. Once that's done, step 2 is to systematically grow that fund until it can cover at least 3 months of your essential living expenses. That right there is a true financial firewall. Okay, once that safety net is secure, now it's time for the really fun part. Making your money start working for you so you don't have to work so hard for it. The secret ingredient to all of this is compound interest. It's like a tiny snowball rolling down a really long hill. It starts small, but the longer it rolls, the more snow it picks up, and it just grows exponentially. This is the incredible force that does all the heavy lifting on your journey to building wealth. And this is exactly why starting early is everything. Just look at this.
If you invest 10 grand at age 25, it could grow to almost $77,000 by the time you're 55. But what happens if you wait just 10 years to start? That same $10,000 only grows to about $40,000. That decade of waiting literally costs you $37,000 in growth. Time is the closest thing we have to free money.
Now, while compound interest is building you up, there's a villain in this story that can tear it all down just as quickly: high-interest debt. It's like pouring sand into the gears of your entire system, and it's actively working against you every single day. The math here should be a serious wake-up call. A $5,000 credit card balance at a pretty standard 22% interest rate can cost you nearly $2,800 in interest alone if you only make minimum payments. That's thousands of dollars that could have been compounding for you, but instead it's just making the credit card companies rich.
So what's the best way to get rid of it? It's called the debt avalanche. It's simple. You list out all your debts, you keep paying the minimums on everything. But then you take every single extra dollar you have and you throw it at the debt with the absolute highest interest rate. Mathematically speaking, it is the fastest and cheapest way to become debt-free.
So what's the big takeaway from all this? It's that you don't need to chase some hot stock tip or get lucky. Real, sustainable wealth is built with a consistent and, let's be honest, a pretty boring system.
And this slide right here brings it all together. This is the machine. You set up automation, which feeds into your safety net. You get rid of that high-interest debt that's holding you back, and then you just let the incredible power of compound interest do its thing through smart, diversified investments. It's not flashy, it's not exciting, but this is the system that actually works.
And that really is the core message. The people who actually reach financial independence aren't the ones who sprint and burn out in the first few years. They're the ones who get that it's a marathon, and they build a sustainable pace using systems and automation that allow them to actually finish the race. So let's just end with this thought. Building this system, it isn't really about the money. It's about what the money gives you. It's about freedom, the freedom to focus on what actually matters to you. Once the machine is built and it's running on its own, the real question becomes, what are you going to do with all that time and energy?